when I was putting my father in the grave. My mother's voice came out of the box, and that voice said to me, "Your father buried me alive, Jack." I'm Jack Monroe. I'm 38 years old. I'm a gravedigger. I was born and raised in a small town in New Mexico. My father was an ex-sheriff. I lost my mom when I was 12, or so I thought. I lived in my father's shadow my whole life. He was strict, unloving, but you couldn't argue with him because his word was law. And one day, that man died. I dug the grave myself for her funeral. I wanted to place a symbolic stone for my mother next to it, but the pickaxe hit. Not a stone, but metal. At first I thought I had hit an old pipe, but the sound was different, echoing and full. Careful clearing of the soil revealed a small rusty box. Metal, but strangely heavy. When I opened the lid, out came my mother's necklace. The stone on it still glittered, but the real blow was the tape. It had only 3 letters on it, JM. My initials? With trembling hands, I inserted the tape into the player. Only one question echoed in my head. What message is this? As the tape began to spin, my mother's voice filled the room. I hadn't heard that voice in 26 years, but a mother's voice. It brings you back to your childhood. Your father didn't kill me, Jack. He just buried me. And he didn't want you to know. If this voice reached you, either he's dead, or you're very close to finding out everything. I couldn't move for seconds. I couldn't breathe. My heart felt like it was stuck in my throat. My father had lied to me for years. He told me my mother had died in a car accident. He showed me the grave. He even cried. But that woman, his wife, my mother, was alive, and that man had buried her in the ground. I realized something that day. The truth can sometimes be much darker than we think, and worse, there were other people who knew this secret. Because one person can't make someone disappear alone. Someone has to look the other way. Someone keeps quiet. Someone helps. When I was a kid, there was a cop who came and went. Emmett. He was my dad's deputy. He always gave me candy. But after my mom disappeared, he never asked me a day. Now everything was falling into place. Realizing that the people around me that I had known for years were actually part of this dark story was as heavy as hearing my mother's voice. I listened to the tape over and over. Each time my mother's voice became clearer, it was as if the ghost of the past was haunting my ears. Your father said I was crazy. No one listened. And then he left me in a room. There was no light. There was no time. There were only walls. These words gave me another clue. My mother was locked up somewhere. But where? After I made that dig, nothing was ever the same again. My father still looked at me with the same eyes, but now I knew the darkness behind those eyes. And from that day on, I made a decision. I wasn't going to show him anything. Quietly, patiently, watching every detail. Step by step, it would collapse. I still called him Dad, but I always felt like a murderer. In the morning, I still sat at the breakfast table, but at the same time, there was only one thing on my mind. Every shadow, every crack in this house will give you away. First, I went down to the documents from the year my mother disappeared. I found a folder gathering dust in the old trunks on the roof. It was dated 1989, and in it, along with my mother's name, there was another name. Dorothy M., my father's former partner, and the woman he introduced years ago as your aunt who brought you milk. That was the first clue. Then I went down to the cellar, which had been locked for years. When I was a kid, he always told me, "It's full of rats, don't go near it." But this time I took a flashlight and a hammer. I broke down the rusty door all by myself. The inside smelled strongly of damp, but one of the stones on the floor was different from the others. It was looser. I dug. A hatch appeared. Underneath, a rotten blanket, a rusted comb, and my mother's diary. With trembling hands, I opened the pages. My mother had written, "Dorothy knows everything. If Jack finds this writing, there are still darkness in this house." Then I went upstairs again. My father was lying on the couch watching the game. He saw me, he smiled. I smiled back. But all I could think was, your end will begin before that game. From that day on, I started recording every detail. His calls, bank records, travel information from '89. A man who made his own mother disappear. I realized that he had never imagined how he would be watched in the shadows by his own son. And now I was becoming something he could never have imagined. My mother's silent revenge. Everything in that house was now a silent stage. And me, I had turned into an actor who was slowly assuming the leading role. I only needed one thing to complete my plan, to confront him with his own past, and to make him hear the echoes of the past. I put my mother's cassette tape into my father's old tape recorder. I placed it right behind the couch where he sat every night. It all started at 2340. The TV was on. My father had fallen asleep. I turned on the stereo with the remote control. The voice echoed through the house. "Your father didn't kill me, Jack. He just buried me, and he didn't want you to know." My father opened his eyes. He stiffened. The second sentence from the tape recorder stunned him. "If that voice is still alive, either it's dead or you're close to finding out everything." At that moment, our eyes met. I was no longer silent. "What did you feel, Dad?" I said. "Did you realize that those eyes that looked at you for so many years now carry your mother's shadow?" He froze. He was just breathing. He didn't answer. Then I stopped the tape and put an envelope in front of him. Inside was a copy of my mother's diary, Dorothy's name and a voice note dated 1989. In that note, my mother said, "He's tricking me with Dorothy. If this note is found, tell Jack everything." So I got up quietly, went to the police. I showed them the evidence in the house, the tape, the diary, the underground compartment, everything. And at 6:15 in the morning, my father came out of the house handcuffed. It was quiet, just like the silent disappearance of my mother all those years ago. But this time the silence was the silence of the day of reckoning. I looked at him for the last time. And I said, "You buried my mother. I put you in the grave with your past. You know, in real life, justice sometimes comes too late. But if no one remains silent, that darkness will one day be illuminated." Do you think Jack did the right thing? Was it best to plan quietly, to uncover years of mystery and get justice? Or confront him directly? I look forward to your opinion in the comments. And if you enjoy such real-life stories full of secrets, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.